Hey guys, Enter the Stars. Welcome to the channel. I don't know what happened to yesterday's show, but parts of it dropped out. I think we went probably 45 minutes, but only about 38 minutes of it showed up. So I don't know what happened. I think it might have had something to do with me having Google Earth open. So apologies, but I think most of the show came through. So thanks to everybody that showed up for that. Now, today we've got some important headlines to go over, as it seems like they're setting us up once again to be locked down in the fall and masked up. And it feels as though they gave us a taste of conditional freedom over the summer as they dangled the carrot on their terms to try to get everybody to comply with what they want us to comply with, right? And even though going back to lockdown seems unbearable, it seems like the writing's on the wall. Now, we're seeing very low numbers in countries with the Delta variant, but the media keeps pushing the rates of increase rather than the raw numbers. And also, they're pushing the never-ending threat that the Delta and the Lambda and everything else that they're going to throw at us will do what CV-19 did, or what they claim it did. So they're slowly tightening the screws. And the latest episode is now they're going after the 20 to 30 something year old range with stories like this. This guy with a double lung transplant. Now, before I get into this story, look at what they had just reported on just a few days ago. I'm 30 and I have no reason to get the sticker because the sticker in the arms of young adults is a challenge for public. So this is what they're saying, right? So they were already announcing that they were going after this age group. And then lo and behold, a couple days later, they come out with this story. Now, God bless this person. He needs a double lung transplant, and that really sucks. We're praying for him, but let's read between the lines about what is really going on with this. And to me, these stories are so obvious because they claim that they know that he had no pre-existing conditions. Yet, what does HIPAA law say? You're not allowed to discuss a patient's medical history, especially not on a national platform, like a news outlet in a news story. You can't say that about somebody, is what I thought, but apparently they said he had no pre-existing conditions. Now, I looked into this guy a bit, and he was in the roofing industry originally. And I've seen roofers and people that work in construction, and oftentimes they have medical conditions that are dealing with either their lungs or their hands or pain and different kinds of things like that, because you're in an industrial environment. And so you have to ask, were there other factors? And, the story doesn't even give fair balance here. Here's what happens, or what can happen, when you go on a ventilator, which is exactly what happened to him. It can cause lung damage. So they're not really disclosing that could have been part of the equation once he was put on a ventilator. So notice that they make it a point to cite his age here, and that links into this agenda to make sure that the fear is spread out evenly, and that all groups are basically challenged, held to account to go get the sticker. And I'm basically trying to show you their tactics and techniques. First, they tell you there's a problem with that age group. They don't want to get it. And now they're saying that this guy had this happen to him, and that he regrets and wishes that he would have got the sticker to avoid all of this. It's the way they frame these stories. Now, again, prayers for this guy. But I mean, even in looking at the guy, he has a pretty high BMI index, apparently. So I'm wondering if, did he really not have any pre-existing conditions? Usually when you're carrying that kind of weight, there's something going on with your health. They might not have identified whether or not he had pre-existing conditions. Like maybe he didn't go to the doctor, but it doesn't mean they weren't there. Now, before we get into more of these sticker stories and look at what's going on in America and the world regarding the sticker push, let's look at what Satan is telling us about the moon wobble. And I call them Nasatan because that's what they are. And they're trying to basically tell us that the earth is going to have tidal floods all around the earth. Now, God made Noah a promise that never again would he flood the earth. He set a rainbow in the clouds to prove that. And I believe that he made this promise because when Jesus comes back, it won't be with water, it will be with fire. So God has the fire and the water covered. Yet, you see in Hollywood, all over the place, they basically have these worldwide floods as a part of the programming, right? Over and over again. Worldwide floods, rising water, global warming. I just watched this film the other day called Tides. And, of course, it's all about a global tide. So the backdrop of this film, Tides, goes a little bit like this. Of course, it's humanity who destroys nature on Earth, right? Which causes these sweeping global tides, forces this small group of elite off planet. They go to Kepler. They're there for a couple generations, waiting for Earth to recover. They then return, and they find this water world. And apparently there's also an aspect to this where there are no new children are being born. But when they return to Earth, they find that, in fact, the Earth is starting to recover. But this woman here, she's the lead in the film. She basically finds that the corruption has already begun back on Earth, even with this small group of survivors. One of the astronauts that had come back earlier is still alive, but he's already starting to genie-side the natives, and he's trying to indoctrinate them into his New World Order plans. She stops him, of course, because, that's what they do. Now, these movies, these are the kinds of movies that are meant to turn humanity, like me and you, not the controllers, to turn me and you into scapegoats so that they can force controls upon us. That's what these are. These are mechanisms for control. Because last time I checked, you or I don't own a plastic bottle factory. You or I don't fly on private jets that burn a bunch of fossil fuels. You and I don't do really anything of any significance that could cause lots of pollution. I mean, unless you're out in your backyard with some kind of furnace just burning up everything around you 24/7. Last I checked, we don't own factories. So where's all this coming from, this control? Well, why don't they start by controlling themselves first? Why don't they start by closing their own factories and finding other ways for us to drink water instead of out of a bottle? You see? See the hypocrisy here? So let's read about this earth wobble, or the moon wobble, that Nasatan is talking about here. Let me make sure you guys are with me. Keep going with this. Welcome, everybody. Brace for flooding. The moon wobble's coming, Nasatan warns. Thanks to a wobble in the moon's orbit and rising sea levels, every coast in the U.S. will face rapidly increasing high tides. It will start a decade of dramatic increases in flood numbers in the 2030s. Okay, so they're telling us basically we're going to turn into a water world. And don't you think it's interesting that they released that film, The Tides, right in conjunction with all of this to drill in the fear? Now, what this is going to do is it's going to cause people to go, oh, we need to compensate for that. Now we really need to be serious about global warming because this is a national security risk. See how this works? The conclusion, which was published in Nature, blah, 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 has to do with the moon's orbit, which takes 18.6 years to complete, according to NASA. Notice there's that 19 number again. You round 18.6 up. You get that 19 number, which we talked about. For half of that time period, Earth's regular daily tides are suppressed, with high tides at a low average and low tides happening at a higher rate. In the other half of the cycle, the opposite occurs. High tides get higher and low tides get lower. Global sea level rise pushes high tide in only one direction, higher, so half of the cycle counteracts the effect of sea level rise on high tides, and the other half increases the effect. The moon is currently in its tide amplifying cycle right now, and there currently is no cause of concern of dramatic flooding occurring, given sea levels in the U.S. haven't risen much. Oh, wait a minute. I thought the ice caps were melting, and all the coastal areas were already supposed to be flooded like 10 years ago. So, this is what they're saying, and who knows how all this is going to shake out. To me, this is more like just fear. I don't think this will happen, but I wanted to report on what this was talking about. Now, let's get into this next story. Now, I'm going to kind of scroll past this pretty quickly because we're not allowed to talk about this kind of stuff. We can, but YouTube flags these videos when we do. But this is concerning because basically they defaced the Christ of the Ozarks. And thanks to the subscriber who sent this to me. I believe these kinds of stunts are done by our own government. I mean, if you think about it, with all of the cameras and ring systems and blink systems, all the police would have to do is approximate the time when this banner went up, and I'm going to show you in a second, and then they just start running plates. They could probably narrow it down pretty quickly if they had the incentive to do so. And I would imagine there would even be probably cameras on this monument as well, right? It's a pretty major monument here. There's got to be some camera looking at it. But lo and behold, no one's been caught for this. They don't know who did it. Oh, look, they're saying it's a political activist art group. Okay, so they did find the people who did this. We'll read this article in a second, but I want to talk to you about it for a minute before we get into it. So, what upsets me about stunts like this is that when it comes to Jesus, these stories rarely make the mainstream. And that would be one indication that Jesus is real. Oh, the media jumps all over when other things are defaced, like mosques and things like that. But they don't give this a mention ever. Now, I believe these kinds of plots and stunts are basically intended to stir the pot and increase division, mistrust between races and religions, because this is how the enemy gains power, through division, right? Keeps us all divided. Let's take a look at this story. I'm going to scroll right past this again in case you didn't catch it last time, but this is what they put on the Jesus of the Ozarks, which is complete abomination. It says a political activist group on a 45-foot banner reading, "God bless the taking of a child in the womb," on a 65-foot tall Christ of the Ozarks statue. The stanza is a symbol of hope in Northwest Arkansas on Thursday night. Members of the activist art collective called they're called In Decline. Wow, that's interesting. In Decline disguise themselves as construction workers to sneak onto the property and use pulleys and climbing gear to hang the banner on the Christ of the Ozarks statue in Eureka Springs. It was erected in 1966. Kent Butler, director of the operations, the Great Passion Play, the Christian organization that manages the Christ of the Ozarks statue, told the Christian Post that he hopes a political message In Decline tried to portray will instead turn people's attention towards Jesus. Well, that would be a good way to look at it. It was all about In Decline getting attention to expand their platform. But our pivot really is that it's about Jesus, Butler told CB on Saturday. This whole place exists to lift up Jesus. And I really did get that feeling when in the Ozarks. There are a lot of believers there. And people say, God bless you. It's a very spiritual place. And it almost seems, too, that people don't just label themselves Christian. They also live the Christian lifestyle as well. They're kind. Had a person in front of me in a drive-thru buy coffee. So this is what people are about there. It's not just calling yourself a Christian and going to church once a week and then nothing else in your life shows that you're a Christian. These people actually live it. So this was the story. Now, this is not a national article. Somebody sent this to me from the Christian Post. Happened on July 8th, 2021. Now, on to this next story. There have been some new developments on the egg stain Gizwell saga. And apparently they're claiming that another black book was found. It had 200 new names in it. There were 300 something total names, but 200 of them were new names. And it was from 1997. And there were some interesting people in this book. One of them was Chris Cuomo's wife. There was also Melania's best friend. Of course, the T-Man was in there and many others. Now, what's interesting about this is something is exposed here in this newest black book. They actually talk about J.J. Good Times Pharma Company. And the link is to Melania. Let's look this up here. Let me find this so you guys can see this. Now, if you don't know who I'm talking about, let's go over here. I think it's in this article. JJ Pharma Company. I call him JJ Good Times because you guys all know who JJ was from Good Times, right? Melania's close pal, Susan Urcha, who now goes by Susan Johnson after her marriage to Woody Johnson, is among the 200 new entries, listing not only an apartment in Midtown Manhattan, but also the phone numbers of her brother and sister. Woody Johnson was T-Man's ambassador to England, and his great-grandfather's Robert Wood Johnson, the first founder of J.J. Good Times Pharma Corporation. Now, this exposes something because this company benefited from the original warp speed agenda to get stickers to market as quickly as possible. Now, JJ sticker was approved after he left office, but the door was open for all these companies to make a ton of money. Maybe they delayed the approval so that it wouldn't be tied back to him. But here you go. Through Melania's end here. Interesting. Here's the way I look at this. If it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Now, all these people that were friends with this man were friends with him for a reason. He was providing a service. Now, here's what I think happened. Here's how the scenario probably went. The elite in New York are addicted to foreign models, which they can enslave, they can blackmail by confiscating their passports. We've seen this kind of thing happen. It's known. We've heard them complain about it. I was trapped. They took my passport. We've heard this story over and over again. Now, a lot of these girls don't even have passports. Well, how do they get in the country if they don't have passports? Well, you would need a private jet, wouldn't you? I believe this was a foreign traffic operation under the cover of international modeling agencies, of which both T-Man and Eggstain were part of. They needed transportation to fly under the radar to evade authorities, which is where the Lola Lita Express came in, complete with a flush hatch that could be opened mid-flight in case they ran into any issues before they landed. I can only imagine the horrors that happened on that airplane. So when you see the victims speaking up, these are only the victims that have a voice, that live in America. Think of all the voiceless victims that have no identity, no passport, who are flown directly from these countries. Here's what you have to understand. People have addictions, and it almost seems as though the more money and power people have, they think they can get away with things because they have friends in places that have power and control. They have judges bought off. Now, you're probably asking, Casey, what's the proof of all this? You can't just make accusations and sweeping statements like this. Here's the proof. Not one of these people in any of these black books is being investigated as to why they're in the book. In fact, the investigators for the victims aren't even trying to cross-reference names in the book. Don't you think there would have been several announcements that of more of these people being named from these books? But yet, none of these victims ever saw or talked to or spoke to any of these people? That's unlikely, especially since they were all flying on some of the same planes they were. Now, why is all this being controlled? Well, I believe it's being controlled because it goes all the way to the top. How do I know it goes all the way to the top? Because at this point, after all these years, these books have been out, we should have at least 50 plus indictments based on the Black Book alone. Let's read a little bit of this here. Christina Grieven Cuomo, who is married to Chris Cuomo, is in Eggstain's 1997 address book. The book entries for 349 people predates his other book by 7 years. One entry is for Christina Grieven Cuomo, the editor-in-chief of the Purist and wife of Chris Cuomo. The newly discovered address book, published Tuesday, connects dozens of new names to Eggstein and traces previously known relationships back to 1990s. One of the new names belongs to Christina Grieven Cuomo, New York editor and entrepreneur. She married Chris Cuomo in 2001. Now, she wasn't married to him when she was in the book, but we're talking about a group or club of people. The book lists her under a minor misspelling of her birth name. Her entry refers to a Manhattan file, a New York Society magazine she published after her father purchased it in 1994. The same entry includes an office address in the New York City neighborhood of Soho, an office phone number, and a home phone number. In the 90s, Grieven Cuomo was known for hanging out with socialites like Alex von Furstenberg and the former CNN producer Pamela Gross. The latter appears in both Little Black Books and is now a close friend of Melania Trump. It's unclear why Grieven Cuomo is listed in the book. She serves as an editor-in-chief for The Purist, a wellness website she founded in 2017. A message left with The Purist seeking comment from Grieven was returned almost immediately by Chris Cuomo, who declined to comment for the record to make his spouse available. So, here's the story. We'll see how all this shakes out. But if they were serious about doing anything about this, there would be lots and lots of indictments and arrests. They've had plenty of time to investigate this. It wasn't just Giswell and Eggstein that were responsible for this. This goes far, far deeper. So, what else do we have here in the headlines? Well, according to them, there's not going to be a third sticker. They were talking about it, and the companies that came out with the first two stickers were pushing for a third booster sticker. But apparently the F to the D to the A is not going to approve that for now. See how that shakes out. But that's pretty much all that needs to be said about this story. Now, here's another obvious programming story to tell you how to think. This is New York Times, July 14th. The purpose of this story is to reinstill your faith in living in the city. Urban settings. Let's read this. CV didn't kill the cities. Why was that prophecy so alluring? Make sure you guys are with me. We'll finish this up here. From the moment U.S. CV-19 cases emerged in the Seattle area and then devastated New York City last spring, sweeping predictions about the future of city life followed. Density was done for. An exodus to the suburbs and small towns would ensue. Transit would become obsolete. The appeal of a yard and home office would trump demand for bustling urban spaces, and Zoom would replace the in-person connections that give big cities their economic might. The spam-demic promised nothing short of the end of cities, a prophecy foretold by pundits, tweets, and headlines at times with unveiled, whatever that word is. If the past year has laid bare many underlying forces in society, this was another one. A deep-rooted discomfort, suspicion even, about urban life in America. But now city sidewalks are returning to life. See how they're framing this? Spam-demic migration patterns have become clear. Researchers have dispelled early fears that density is a primary driver. Okay, whatever. So it's perhaps a good time to ask, what is so alluring about the perpetually imminent end of cities? Why won't that idea itself die? In America, it has been like a virus strain mutating to the moment. Surely disease will kill cities, or congestion will, or corruption, or suburbanization, or fiscal crisis, or technology, or crime, or teeterism, or this spamdemic. Inevitably, the city survives. You know that Cain built the first city in the Bible, and it was named Enoch. Not the Enoch, but a knockoff Enoch, an knockoff. So Cain did that in rebellion. Guess who else built a city? Nimrod built a huge city. You can read about it in the book of Jasher, a city around the Tower of Babel. It was basically a metropolis, and everyone was there helping to build the tower. So they want you to reinstill your faith in the city. And why do you think that they want to reinstill your faith in living in the city? Here's why. Here are these people going door to door, convincing people to get the sticker. And it's easier for them to do that when you live in a city. It's easier to indoctrinate, to control people. You see, the controllers don't like rural settings because they don't feel safe. They don't feel protected. They don't know who's behind the door. Right? And if they could, they would make rural living illegal. And that's exactly what they're trying to do as we speak, under the guise of sustainability and nature. They don't want you living in nature because they feel like they have to cordon off nature to protect it, or that's the reason that they give us. It's not what they really care about. What they really care about is corralling you into an easily manageable situation where they know all the exits, all the entrances. They can roll takes down the street if they want, if things get too bad, and they can go door to door and flush things out. Well, here's what's going on in New Jersey. Door to door sticker push. They put on their blue vests. They grab flyers, masks, and water bottles, and they headed out into the streets, grabbing everyone they could find to see if they have received the sticker. They walked down First Street, where a man who had recently moved here from Mexico pledged to get the sticker as soon as he could. They canvassed Jersey Transit bus station, Lexington, where a woman told them she had a heart condition and was waiting to hear from her cardiologist to see if it was safe. Really trying to get to the granular level, really know your communities, know their needs, and know how to motivate them. So here's some of the pictures of what the people in Jersey are experiencing as they run around and try to pressure people into getting the sticker. Now they're saying they're not pressuring people, but just the confrontation of having to speak to someone who you know is trying to get you to do something, to me, crosses a boundary. Here they're handing out flyers in Lakewood. These blue vests. Now, these two women are part of this team in Jersey that's fanning out in the neighborhoods with below average sticker rates, trying to convince holdouts to get the sticker. See, they're even saying it right here, trying to convince. It says, unstickered, then the state could knock on your door if you live in these shore towns. It is painstaking work. Sometimes they find residents who hurry off to the nearest sticker center. Other times they get bogged down in a conversation about whether the sticker was approved too quickly. But experts say their work is vital to putting the brakes on a disease that continues to worry them. The number of CV cases has ticked up in some of these counties. So, here's what's going on. The blue vests. Now, my personal opinion is I don't want to discuss my medical situation with anybody. I don't even discuss my medical situation with my doctor, to be honest with you, because I don't go to the doctor. I figure if something hurts, I'll just try to live better, right? Try to exercise more or abstain from alcohol or maybe quit coffee for a few days to see if that will help. That's my personal opinion. Now, some people do like to have their doctor involved with their health and feel dependent on them. But notice said the word dependent. So, look they've got this whole thing mapped out. Here's Jersey here. New Jersey adults who are fully stickered for CV-19 as of July 12, 2021. So it looks like, wow, a lot of these places are 100%. I think those are counties, because the 100% would be the darkest color on this map, and the good central part of it is pretty much close to 100%, and it's the southern part of Jersey that doesn't have as much of the stickers. So this is what our world has become like. Now, I'm going to go back here in the chat. Have you guys seen these blue vests running around in your area, in your neck of the woods? I'd like to hear about it if you have. I haven't seen them yet. All right, everybody. "21 counties," says Bill. Thanks, Bill. Have you guys seen any of these blue vests running around in your neighborhood? I wonder if they're all blue. It's weird. It's almost like they've delegated this out to the localities. In other words, you don't really see government workers coming around. You see local people. They probably did that on purpose. Lisa says she's seen them out in Ohio. I can imagine places like Ohio and some of these places. Oh yeah, a lot of you, Sarah, are saying in Ohio they're out and about. Susie says apparently Ireland is 70% stickered. Blue Jacket Girl in Planet of the Apes. Yeah, usually if you just get enough rest and maybe abstain from some of the things you might be going a little bit too hard on, usually you'll start to feel better. And drinking plenty of water. That's the first thing I do before I ever go see a doctor. Now, when I was in France, I had some kind of a stomach issue. I couldn't figure it out, but I think I narrowed it down. And I had these really bad stomach cramps. Couldn't go to the bathroom for 5 days. And my stomach was hurting so bad, and it would come in waves. And, you never know. You're in a foreign country. I was this close to going to the emergency room. I just laid in bed and I just prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And I was like, God, what is this? Do I need to go to the emergency room? I mean, I could barely walk. But I think what happened is I overdosed on blackberries from this vine. And I think what happened was I was chewing on the seeds. I'm weird. I don't like any food to go to waste. And I'll sit there and I'll watch a refrigerator. And if something's been in there a while, it's the first thing I eat because I don't like to throw away food. Americans throw away a lot of food. I think the statistic is like 40% of money you could save on your grocery bill if you simply manage your groceries in your refrigerator and cabinets better. But a lot of people don't. We live in a society where you can just go and buy something and just throw it away if it's been in the refrigerator for 2 weeks. But I tend to like to eat everything. So anyway, long story short, I was living on a farm, of course, and I wanted these beautiful blackberries are growing on this vine, and there were tons of them. So I was a good steward, like the Bible tells us we're supposed to be, and I would pick them all off the tree and take them to the neighbors. I would eat them. I would blend them in shakes. And so, long story short, these seeds were in these blackberries, and I don't think you're supposed to be chewing on these seeds. It might have some kind of similar component to what you would, like the reason why they don't tell you to eat like seeds inside certain fruits, because they contain like, what is it, arsenic or something like that. It turns into something, and you could actually poison yourself from eating these seeds. So I was chewing on these seeds. I should have just spit them out. I don't know. Have you guys ever experienced anything like this with these seeds? Anyway, maybe it was a case of getting something caught in my like colon or something, you know, where it was like got it caught in like a pocket and I had some kind of infection. I don't know. But I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and it magically went away. Not magically, but obviously maybe God healed me, but it was weird. It was very sudden. It was like the minute that I prayed that it went away. So that was the closest I've ever been to feeling like I had to go to a doctor in the last 20 years of my life. Now, I've never broken any bones, but I'm careful. And there are a couple times where I may have broken a bone. I just didn't realize it. It wasn't like popping out of my skin. Like I've fallen on my wrist a couple times and it's like been swollen and kind of hurt, but then it's fine, you know, after a couple months. Now, I'm not encouraging people not to go to the doctor. I'm just saying that in America, we tend to rush to the doctor. And so that's just one story. But, yeah, you guys have any idea? Yeah, strychnine, someone says, Deborah says here. Yeah, apple seeds, yeah, you're not supposed to eat some of this stuff. Now, it's weird at low levels of some of these things, some of these seeds and cores of fruit, it's supposed to actually be good for you. But then you hit this part where you like overdose. Yeah. Sister Becky says that was probably it. So, yeah, cyanide. Thanks, Jill. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what it was. It's cyanide. Yeah. So some of these seeds of fruits contain low levels of cyanide. If you eat too many of them, that's what can happen. So I'm just careful now. I try not to chew on seeds. I just thought I was getting something out of it or something, but I probably like overdosed. All right. What else do we have here? Apricot seeds. Yeah, those are supposed to be not good for you either. Just me. I heard a story recently about, you know, when you go in and get x-rays, and now they have this new shield that they put on you that goes up around your neck, and they tell you right out that it's to protect your thyroid. Well, where was that neck shield years and years ago when all of us got like x-rays on our teeth and body x-rays? There was no shield to cover our thyroids, and you got to ask yourself. I believe sometimes when you go to the doctor, they actually can make you sick if they're not careful with some of their procedures. So you just got to be careful. I don't want anyone poking and prodding on me, especially with how they work these days where they just want to prescribe something. They don't want to tell you, when's the last time a doctor told you, you need to get more rest, you look tired, or you need to take your vitamins, or you need to reduce stress in your life. Doctors don't talk like that anymore. They just prescribe something. Even like woman needs, you know, if you got like woman needs, you know, sometimes stuff happens down there. And instead of them saying, oh, look, you could take a little vinegar, let's try that first. But instead they just go right to the antibiotic. So there's just stuff going on that we need to be careful of. All right, what else do we have here? Dancing nurses. No profit in healthy people. Absolutely escape the matrix. All right, you guys, I'm going to let you get to your day. Appreciate everyone coming out. We will be back on here tomorrow. I'm watching a couple different series. I'm watching Equinox. I finally broke down and got Netflix because there's a couple of series that I wanted to watch. Now, a lot of these are foreign films. So the problem with it is you can't screen record Netflix. So I can't put together an English dubbed screen recording from the Netflix site. So what I have to do is I have to go find it on another site, and then we have to read subtitles for those clips. But this Equinox series is really shaping up to be something, because basically it's about this cult on an island and about a missing girl, and her little sister keeps seeing images of Cernunnos, the horned god. And we've talked all about that. So I'm going to keep watching it and see what I come up with. I'm also watching The Rain. And of course, The Rain is loaded with pre-programming for CV19. There's masks all over the place. We did a little bit of work on that on a couple previous shows. I showed you some clips from The Rain. So I'll try to collect some of those clips, and we'll probably have a show tomorrow in the morning, same exact time. Yes, Tom, Cernunnos is Cern. Some people pronounce it Cernunnos, but Cernunnos is the horned god of the forest. Okay, he is syncretized with the god Pan, which is also a horned god of the forest. So that's that. Love each and every one of you. Have a great day, everybody. Take care and be safe.